So now that we've talked about the process in general, let's talk a bit about how you actually go about getting a job. Particularly your first job, the first one's always the hardest because you don't really know where to go, you don't know what to do, you don't know how to go to an interview, how to do a resume, a cover letter, all that kind of stuff. You might not have any education about it, like they may not talk about it in your school. Your parents probably haven't applied for anything in decades, and if they have, it's been like something professional. Most people start off obviously at like some sort of minimum wage, menial, or if you're lucky, clerical job. So the first thing to keep in mind is don't panic. This is not true for everybody, but generally speaking, getting something minimum wage, like doing cleaning or working at like a fast food place or something, isn't that difficult to get. These places have very high turnovers and very low standards. So you can probably will eventually, if you put in a little effort, you'll be able to probably get something at some point. And don't worry about being qualified or not because there's no expectation that you'd be qualified. Unless you're applying to be like a supervisor or a manager or something, which you're probably not going to do for your first job. So I don't think that's something you need to worry about. Now, obviously, as with any job, even when it comes to minimum wage jobs, they prefer that you have experience. Now, experience isn't just working a previous job, it can be anything that involves you taking responsibility, showing initiative, interacting with the public, anything like that. So, if you haven't done a previous job, here's some other stuff you could put on your resume. Maybe there's some volunteer work. If you work at a soup kitchen, you work with disadvantaged kids, you work at maybe a old age home or something like that. If you're involved with your church, maybe you teach or help out with Sunday school or catechism. You participate in like some poverty program, like feeding the poor or something like that. Or if you're involved with something at school, maybe you're like on the yearbook committee or you're like a class representative or you're on student council or something like that. Feel free to put all these things down because this shows you have a work ethic. This shows you have responsibility. Just try to come up with something. It doesn't have to be great. Once again, the expectations for like a minimum wage job for what you're going to be able to do aren't high. But if you can go into it with at least having something on your resume, then that's better than nothing. And like you might have to put down, oh, I've completed grade school or I'm an honors student or something. But just keep in mind they aren't expecting like a ton of stuff if you're going to get your first job. But try to come up with something, and when they interview you, try to, I don't know, have a time you showed responsibility. We'll get into interviewing later on. So don't worry about it. Just try to make the most professional resume you can. Like make it look nice, spell check it, etc. But if you don't have a ton of stuff there, don't worry about it. So that's kind of part one. Part two is finding a place to work, and this can be difficult because you go, I need to get a job, and you go, oh my god, where am I going to work? Where am I going to work? What am I going to do? How am I going to find a place? And that's very difficult because it's overwhelming. You don't know what you're doing. It's probably the first time you've done it. So what I would say is here's some advice. Make a list of places you frequently go, be it a store, a restaurant, some other sort of thing. Just think of businesses you frequently go to or services that you frequently use. And then think about those that are within either commuting, driving, or walking distance, however it is. And that gives you a good idea of some places that you can consider. Like for me, also, if it's something you're interested in, that's another thing to put on. So just make a list and have like places you frequently go, things you're interested in, at least a little, and places that are within walking distance or driving distance or however that it would be economical for you to get there. Also, I guess take into mind what kind of work you'll probably be doing. Because some people don't mind doing cleaning. Some people have weaker stomachs and don't like to do that. Some people like it if there's like more physical exertion involved in their job, so they get some exercise. Some people just want it to be purely clerical. So these are all things you have to take into account. So maybe try to come up with a list of 3 to 5 different places. Like for me, My first job was at a movie theater. Uh, Partially that's why I love movies so much, and because I got free movies when I worked at the movie theater. So after my shift, I'd normally go and see something, and that was back when you used to get free popcorn when you worked for the movie theater. But my point is, I like movies. I like movie theaters. So I just went there and I was like, "Can I apply for a job?" And they're like, "Yeah, just go to our website and apply." And I did, and I got it. If there's a bookstore, you might want to see if they're hiring. Grocery stores are generally another pretty good place to work. So those are just kind of a couple things. Maybe your local library or your local Best Buy or Staples or something. There's lots of different places. So just think of some things. You're obviously not going to have like a super intellectually stimulating job, but if it's something you're kind of interested in, that'll make it a bit better. Maybe you can learn a little bit about the business. Maybe you can learn a little bit about like the logistics or get something else out of it beyond just a paycheck. Um, so that's kind of like how you find a place. So the thing to keep in mind is very few places now have job applications in store. That used to be like the old meme. Is like your father's like you go in there and you look him in the eye and you say I want a job, and they will give you a job, and like that kind of like goofiness. That's not really how it works. Generally speaking, like if you want to apply to a job like Cineplex or Chapters or I assume a lot of different chain companies like that. You go to their website, they have job postings. You fill out an application and you send it in, and then they contact you or don't contact you. And these often involve these stupid personality tests and all this other stuff. But what I'm saying is you may like if you're too shy to like go in and ask for an application, don't worry about it because they probably aren't going to have one. I remember when I did my first rounds on my job, I think like one or two of the places I went gave me a paper application. And the other nice thing about online applications is you can attach your resume. So yeah, once you have some places in mind, go check it out online, see if they have any job postings, see what it says for what the responsibilities are for the job postings, all that kind of thing. Another thing to keep in mind is what kind of work do you want to do? Because I personally never want to work at a fast food place because I just think it's kind of gross. I mean, I know there's a lot of people who work there and like it, but just the grease, the like having to touch all the food, the complexity even at a fast food place, the orders, it's not something I really like. I worked at a concession at a movie theater for like 3 years before I moved on to be a projectionist, but like that was kind of dirty, but at least I was only dealing with popcorn, soda, and like nachos. There wasn't really anything that complicated. So it was you would have nights where I'd come home and I was like coated in like oil from the fryer, from the popcorn makers, and from like the butter dispenser and stuff, but it was at least like tolerable. Whereas if you're working at McDonald's or Burger King or something, there's going to be a lot more stuff you're going to have to deal with. And that's just something a lot of people don't want to do. Conversely, if you're working at a grocery store, all you might be doing is just stocking shelves, which I guess can be kind of monotonous, but it's exercise and you're not having to deal with anything necessarily dirty. You're just having to pull a cart around and put stuff on the shelves. So, like once again, your mileage may vary. If you're someone who likes because the thing with janitorial work is a lot of the time you're just alone when you do it and you don't really have to interact with people much. So if you're someone who has a strong stomach and cleaning washrooms or like dealing with like food cleaning in preparation that stuff doesn't bother you, then you might want to check that out. But while like no job is going to be something you're going to be excited to go and do probably, you want to get something that's bearable. That's not going to make you like want to blow your brains out. So that's kind of I think some advice on how to like get your first job, where to look, etc. Just another thing, keep in mind, use this as a learning opportunity. Um, Particularly if you're early in your career, how you have to look at it is it's part of having like even a minimum wage job is paid training. you're getting the experience of working in an organization, of working for someone, of having responsibilities, of managing your own money, lots of good things like that. And even if you screw up your first couple tests or your first couple interviews, you will get much better at it as you go. And maybe by your third or fourth one, you'll be able to really wow them. And just at like in a doing this, it just gives you a good idea of how to work in a corporation or a small business. It's just good for a lot of different reasons. And the process kind of sucks, and working a minimum wage job sucks. But there is a lot of things. And once you even get like a year or something sweeping floors, the next time you go for a job, it's going to be much easier because you have something on your resume. If nothing else, they can tell you're responsible, you were able to hold down something for a considerable amount of time. It's going to be a lot easier going forward. Once you start getting to professional stuff, that's another thing entirely. But if you have a couple years of doing something that's kind of like menial or minimum wage, it's not going to be nearly as hard to get something else if you need to move or you're at school or something like that. So that's some advice on getting your first job. That's some stuff on that. And I hope you appreciated that. And I hope that that was helpful to you. This is Arjun. God